Okay. Number 2. How do girls act?
OMG, TTYL,
Okay.
purses. They act like boys in some ways, and they act like themselves in other ways. So basically, girls can have long hair and short hairs, and sometimes they can be putting their hair up in ponytails, braids.
Okay.
Oh, can I have a braid? Yes, you may. Oh my God, I love my hair!
Okay.
Next.
What does it mean to be a boy?
I don't know. I don't. It doesn't like. It's not like boys have anything like specific that only boys can do and girls can't do.
I would. It means like not being too sensitive and stuff, I guess. Have fun.
Act gay, please.
What?
Act gay, please.
What is?
Act gay, please. Lana, act gay, please.
I don't know what gay is.
Act gay.
So one microaggression that I commonly hear is somebody calling something gay as in not good or anything like that. And that marginalizes the homosexual community because they feel like anything they do is wrong.
I was a cheerleader for many years, so I was in competitions and stuff and hearing, oh, that's gay, like a lot of my teammates, that could offend them, and I don't know, just stuff like that.
How does a black man act?
I don't know.
Act like a black woman.
What does black mean?
What about a black man?
Hello.
What if a woman says hello to you?
Hello.
What if that woman was black?
It was.
Act like a black woman.
Doesn't a black woman act like a normal person?
Maybe,
Like,
yeah,
doesn't
okay.
matter.
So a black woman acts like a normal person. Okay. How does a black man act?
Just the same as a white man, a normal person.
Okay.
So when I go to the AFC sometimes to go play basketball, some people come and tend to say, oh, you should pick him because he's black, he's good at basketball. I'm just like, I'm not that great, but I get by. So.
Yeah.
It's on video. Social media plays a big role. It's an email. It's a comment. You can't see. You can see incidences in the media that years ago no one had a cell phone, so nobody could pull out a phone and tape it. Now everybody's videotaping. So what we see in my field and my work is stuff on social media, emails. We call it what we call evidence in the courtroom. So we are seeing evidence. We are seeing things like every time you see a police officer, in a compromising situation with a perpetrator, and it's caught on video, cell phone. People are like, did this happen before and we just didn't have a copy of it? We didn't have a video of it? So I think these issues have always been in our society. I think current events kind of stir the pot, right? Politics stirs the pot. World events, the Paris attacks. Right now it's anti-Muslim, but it's been for very long anti-women, anti-black, anti-minority, anti-immigrant. I mean, we're in an interesting time where a lot of this stuff is festering, and our politicians aren't helping. I mean, what I'm seeing is this brand of say whatever I can say to shock people, even if I'm lying, you know, and I get attention, right? And so I think a conversation coming out of all this is this whole notion of civility and respect. And I'm seeing a lot of people, and I touched on it in our lecture, but I'm seeing a lot of people going, oh, I don't believe in political correctness. Well, does that mean you're not going to be respectful and civil? Because if you're not going to be respectful and civil, then I can't talk to you about these things, right? Because if you get emotional and angry and don't listen, and I get emotional and angry and don't listen, then why are we even trying to talk to each other? So civility's out the door, respect is out the door, dignity's out the door, and people bring their biases. And I think, to your point, that it's not so overt. I think some people are still very overt, but they just don't expect to get caught on video. A. B. A lot more subtle, a lot more, the microaggressions, what I call the daily grind of being different. And people will say, well, you're being so overly sensitive, right? Because microaggressions are smaller. But what always kills me is, I can't believe that bothers you, right? And you're being overly sensitive. So I mistreat you, and then I blame you for being sensitive to it. And then I tell you shouldn't be sensitive. I tell my people and I do a lot of coaching and training, I go, look, you can't tell other people how to feel, right? So for me, it's what was said, what was the action, what was the behavior, what was the comment, what proof do we have? And if it's not a cell phone video, it's witnesses, 2 or 3 or 4 people said, oh yeah, he definitely said that. And then what consequence did that action create? Because you have to own those consequences. So you have a lot of people right now going, oh, I don't believe in political correctness, and I'm going to say god-awful stuff, and you can't get offended. That's not how it works. With freedom of speech comes freedom of consequence of that speech, so you have to own it. And right now you're seeing in the media, that's not what I meant, or you took it out of context, or they make stuff up, and they just lie.
Discrimination does still exist today, on a different level and in different ways than it did back in the 1850s or even the 1860s or 1960s. I mean, but it exists in different ways, and it's more subtle now, but it's still prevalent.
So, do you think that discrimination based on gender, race, or sexuality is still prevalent today?
Absolutely.
I think it exists.
Every day.
Every day? What about at UVA?
Yeah, I see it sometimes. I think there's not exclusion, but it's just like not everybody is kind of accepted in every type of group, I feel like, sometimes.
That's right. But hearsay and gossip become fact in these environments. So there's still overt, maybe a little bit less overt, but still a ton of subtle. The microaggressions is definitely a big issue. But typically for the harasser or the bigot or the racist or the sexist or the homo, whatever you want to call them, they will say, I didn't mean it. Right? They think that washes everything over. Oh, I didn't mean it. I was just kidding. You're overly,
get off the hook.
You're overly sensitive. And I tell people, nobody knows what you meant. What we know is what you said, and now you have to own those consequences.
It's not like prevalent, like you see it. It's more like you said, microaggression. It's kind of like the small things you do that you'll see it in you'll see a girl and a guy might call her a bitch or something like that. Sorry. But some things like that. It's just the small things that tend to pile up, and that's what turns microaggressions into bigger things, into bigger issues.
I think it just holds us back from growth as a society and getting beyond those different problems that we've had in the past, because I think we've definitely progressed, but it's not finished completely. Yeah.
So to your question, I think this microaggressions conversation is a very good conversation, and you're seeing it in the colleges. It's exploding, right? Mm-hmm. And what people laughed off and looked the other way, ignored, kind of swept under the rug, people are going, no, you can't do that anymore, right? Tradition, customs, we've always done it, status quo. It's not working, So.
And to that point, what do you feel about the idea, we talk a lot about the people saying, oh, you're being overly sensitive, or that minorities do it to themselves, that it's self-segregation. What do you feel about those comments?
Well, there's plenty of people that find solace in groups, right? It's group dynamics 101. There's two forces at will. There's the force, the power, the drive to be an individual, to be different, to be unique. But then there's another competing force of, to conform, to fit in, to be liked, to be included, safety in group. And I think to be a minority, and you can use that broadly, minorities do cling. They look for support. Are you feeling this? Am I seeing this? And it's back to that validation. Did you just hear that comment? Did that person just say that? Am I the only one offended? So there is safety, solace, support in groups. Now, the most successful minorities are what I call code switchers. We are very comfortable in our own group, but we can be very comfortable in any other group, right? Those are the most successful. An Oprah Winfrey, one guest in her show is white, she's very white. Next guest is black, she can turn on the blackness, It's called code switching. Those are the most successful people. The reality is there's the in-group, and then there's all these other dominant, the in-group which is dominant, and then there are all these other out-groups, and it's not natural, but it's learned, it's taught, stick with your own. But the most successful people in out-groups know, what, to be successful, I've got to punch through the in-group, so I have to understand their ways and learn and be comfortable, right? Now, the in-group says, I don't have to be comfortable with you out-group members, because I'm in the in-group. We are culture. We define comfort, right? But what they're realizing is, as we become a pluralistic society, and all the out-groups become the majority and the in-group becomes the out-group, they'll quickly realize, ooh, who's going to call for affirmative action years from now? White, Anglo-Saxon. They'll be like, hey, how about the affirmative action for us? Now that we're the minorities, mark my words. And all these other groups will go, well, you fought it, then now you want it. So there's going to be an interesting cycle. And another thing I want to say, there's a whole other movement in our space, microaggressions, but then there's this whole notion of unconscious bias, right? Oh, I didn't know I was doing that. I think that's a pass. I think people do know, but they want to hide behind ignorance. Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know your husband or your wife or your partner was, if I'd known that, I wouldn't have said that, right? So I think this notion of unconscious bias is too easy as a pass, right? The police officers don't know they're being so aggressive. They didn't know that was, unlawful use of excessive force. Really? So I sometimes go, really? Or the term that person says, oh, I didn't know that would offend you. But objectively, it's an offensive term, right? And it's also back to this political correctness thing. I didn't know, I didn't mean it, I was just kidding, I had no idea. Those are all sugarcoating, window dressing. Instead of people apologizing. People don't apologize. I'm sorry, That we don't apologize anymore. You're overly sensitive. And I didn't know, right?
Also in your field, because you work specifically with corporate, how do you see diversity impacting in a corporate way in everyday life, not just between individuals, but between the entire
The corporate conversation is, we don't want to be the next laughing stock. We don't want to be perceived as racist, because if you're an employer, a company, an entity, a brand, you want to be perceived as inclusive and welcoming. There's the famous Hilfiger comments. There's different organizations that, we didn't expect those people to come and buy our stuff. Historical, ugly moments of truth in the past. But you realize the economic forces that, there's a boycott, right? If you're not friendly to women go, I'm not buying your whatever you're selling, right? If you're not friendly to minorities, we start talking, you're not going there. So mala gente in Spanish, they're bad people, right? And so corporate's view of diversity is, we have to be aware of these issues. We have to present an appropriate brand, face, and when issues arise, we have to address it. We have to have policies in place. So my field is a lot about training and strategy, being an employer of choice, because today's labor market, workforce, much more diverse. Before, I could just recruit Anglo, white, and I was good. But now, such huge percentages of the workforce are not Anglo. It's like, well, what do they want? What do they need? Let's anticipate their needs. If we're going to recruit them to be an employer of choice, an employer of choice is one that speaks to all different communities, groups, and women want things that are different from men, and those of us that are sandwich generation, and you are, we're taking care of our parents and our children. There's certain benefits that we're looking for, and people that are adopting kids want adoption care support. And it's back to my theme of status quo, doing the same things you've always done, and expecting better outcomes. Whether it's marketing the same way, selling, hiring, recruiting, is suicide. I mean, organizations today realize, wow, we've got to do things differently. And the question is, what is that? Right? That's what I do. Are their words backed by results? Right? We support, we are an inclusive employer. It's typically EOE, equal opportunity employer. But how does their management team look? Like Google, Facebook, these employers are putting out, who they're hiring and saying, we could do a better job. And Intel, you look up Intel's last stories, like in USA Today, how they hired all this diverse talent, and they said in the story, Google and these other companies say you can't find this diverse talent. We found them; they're there, and we think it's a cop out. They called out their competitors, like, you guys either aren't looking, or they're doing what I call the old friends and family. They're only hiring people like themselves. So I think policy, strategy, intent has to be backed up with actual outcome, results. That's the key.
And how do you think if a company either does choose to act on their action or chooses not to, how do you think that affects not just their appearance,
right,
but their actual productivity, their actual product?
Morale goes down. Look, you go into an organization that's very homogenous, it's missing something. You go into a diverse organization, it's like there's more energy, there's passion, there's a sense of healthy environment. But you go into an organization, you're like, where is everybody? There's a staleness. There's a like a loss. So I would just argue homogenous organizations, they're not as innovative, they're not as creative. And the new generation, they want that. They want hip, they want fast, they want creativity. And they walk in and go, wait, aren't we in a downtown major city? Where is everybody, right? And so I think it affects, clearly the newest generation go, look, if I don't believe in your mission and your vision and you're not diverse, why would I want to work here? I want to meet interesting people from different walks of life and background. I don't want to come to some place and that's missing or lacking. So I think that's a critical piece of the conversation. I mean, it makes it effortless, global. The Pope says something on an airplane about homosexuals, who am I to judge? And 9 seconds later, millions of people have heard his comments. So the speed has accelerated, the boundaries are gone, and you see haters. Like, easy example, when my kids, they love the Hunger Games, this whole trilogy thing. And my kids were, 5, 8, and 10 at the time. And they were on the World Wide Web, blogging and talking to people about the movie. And this one girl says, I didn't know Rue was black. If I'd known she's black, I wouldn't have read this book and I would not have gone and seen the movie. And my kids are like, Dad, what is this? I go, well, that's a racist, right? I mean, these are single digits, 8, 10, 8, 5, 8 years old. I'm like, Dad, we read the book. I'm like, you knew this person was black, African American, right? But the internet has allowed people, good or bad, to express to unlimited audiences their beliefs, and there are people who have no problem saying, I hate blanks, and I hate blanks, and I don't believe in blanks, and right now it's Muslims, but the internet, I think in the past there was voices we didn't hear, voices that were muffled, voices that were hidden. Now there's none of that. There's no boundaries, there's no padding, there's no cushioning. Now everything's a throwdown. Speak your mind. And you're seeing this with Trump and Carson and these guys just saying, Jews should have been armed. If they were armed, they could fight Hitler. You're like, what? Paris, if they all had guns, or really? So I mean, I think there's the good and the bad of being transparent, right? So. I think we're talking about it a lot more. I think there's a back and forth, but I had a friend of mine say, I don't let my kids watch that show. I'm like, really? So a little censorship, right? And he was talking about Modern Family. And I said, well, which is another show that has conversations, right? I'm fascinated by Modern Family and Blackish and Ugly Betty. I mean, I watch all those shows because I'm fascinated. But, I had a person in my workshop say, well, why would I watch Blackish? I'm not black. I'm like, you don't understand. When you watch the show, you're like, wow, that's my family too, right? But you have to be open, right? It's the closed mind, I don't want to, that doesn't learn. It's openness, it's curiosity, it's, I said it in the class, you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Most people go, oh, I don't want to talk about it, right? Now the newest generation goes, and they're gay, and, right, and they're black, and they're trans, or what, who cares? I was at, speaking at Hollins University, all girl, all female, the transsexual conversation on their campus, and lesbianism and trans, it was amazing. I told them, you're never going to be in a place where it's this easy to talk about. You go into traditional, regular workplace, taboo, what are you doing? You don't talk about that, right? And they talked about their partners who are going through the process of change, and I was fascinated by the comfort and the ease at which, and it was me in a room full of women, right? I was fascinated by that. And I told them, if you're complaining about this place not being welcoming, this is the most welcoming environment, right? When you get out of here, good luck. Everyone wants a better school environment, a better workplace. Everyone wants more, an easier place in which to talk about these issues. But I think colleges, you're seeing it. The college right now is the trenches of this work, and whether it's Mizzou or Yale or Ithaca or all these schools that are coming out, or even UVA, I think. UVA had a weird journey, with the recent stuff. But if you know any lesson learned from Mizzou, it was the president just not listening, the president not acknowledging, the president, looking the other way. That's not the response. The response is, tell me more. What's going on? Why do you feel that way? And how can we help? Instead of, you're just students. What do you know, right? And I think the turning point, anybody I think would agree, was that football team going, we're not playing. You're going to lose $1 million today. Right? Well, wait a minute, right? The almighty dollar. And that's what's going to make corporate America move. That's what's going to make schools move. Some people don't get it up here. Some people don't get it here. But everybody understands it in the wallet. I'm an economist. I'm an economics and psychology double major. And you're studying psychology. There's a cost of being a bigot. There's a cost of being a racist, a sexist. And we have to make sure that people understand that cost. That's what social media does. Go ahead. And what I tell people is, give the racist a microphone. Give them the mic. Let them stand up there, and then they have to own the consequences. In the past, they might have spoken in hushed tones, in quiet, closed environments with people like themselves. Now people are going off, right? And I go, great. I love free press. I love the media. Let them have it. Let's hear what Romney had to say. About this percentage of the population, and that I am fascinated by that. I'm fascinated by that. The next step is proof.
Okay.
You do this, you say this. What's the consequence, right? Cause effect, right? And unfortunately, Trump is like defying gravity. This guy is saying hateful stuff, and I'm not seeing enough outrage, in my opinion. I'm not seeing enough. Really. I saw it last night. I was watching TV all night. I was like, wow. But when people say hateful stuff and we don't say something, to me that silence is deafening. That absence of dissent, right? We're a democracy. I say something horrible about Jews or women, somebody should go, are you crazy? And call me out. We need to me, that's the next step, is calling each other out and allowing social media to put the spotlight, right? And then tracking the consequences, right? The next step is proof. Organizations that are more diverse, make more money. Organizations that are more inclusive, more people are happy to work there. If they're more happy to work there, they stay and they work harder, and you can show profit. I mean, the economic consequence of hate, there should be a cost. The economic consequence of inclusion and valuing differences, we should show benefit. We should show, outcome and result. And I did that in our workshop, in our lecture. So here's, when you have a diverse organization and everybody's working together for a common mission, the different ideas, right, and innovation and creativity. Well, if you have a homogeneous organization, everybody's thinking alike. I mean, you go into a classroom, you sit in a classroom, and everybody's alike. You're like, oh man, this is gonna be boring. But you sit in a classroom, you go, wow, I don't even know where half these people are from. Now you go, I can't wait to hear what they have to say, right? So the classroom is a microcosm of the world, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now there are people in our society that go, I want to live in a neighborhood where everybody's exactly the same. A gated community. Oh my gosh, shoot me, right? Shoot me. I'm like, not me. Boring.
Yeah. Do you feel that it's possible to get to the point where it is easy to talk about race, gender, sexuality, and...
Oh, the news generation do all the time. I think it's the older generations that have problems.
How do people tell you to act?
Happy.
How do people tell you to act?
They don't tell me to act any certain way.
Okay.
Except for nice.
2 years ago, 5 years ago, Mauricio, will gay marriage ever be legalized? I've been like, oh, it's going to take a long time, right? Would we ever see transsexual trans on magazine covers getting an award from ESPN? I'd be like, oh, that's not going to happen. And bam, it all happens at once. I think our society is almost in shock at the speed of change. I think it's moving too slow. Now it's like, whoa, somebody's got to open a parachute, slow this thing down.